Welcome to Season 2 of Clearing Obstacles, the podcast for leaders and those that want to be, because no organization, not even yours, can thrive without effective leadership. Now, as you master this skill, it will become the superpower that gains the love and respect of your team, the freedom you seek in your life and business, and ultimately, the success of your vision. I'm your host and coach, Dan Kent, with Best Self Coaching, and in Season 2, we're bringing you the voices of thought leaders who have a unique and valuable perspective to share on how to reimagine and redefine leadership in our world today. We'll be diving into topics of vision and authority and accountability, management, culture, vulnerability, self-awareness, and much more, because they all fall on the shoulders of today's leaders. Are you one of those exceptional people? Well, you can be. Our guests all have extensive theoretical and philosophical depth that's also matched by their experience in the practical application of those principles. And we think you're going to agree. So, all of you emerging and evolving leaders, buckle up as we clear the obstacles to help you get there from here. Welcome to the Clearing Obstacles podcast, where we help you get there from here. Before I introduce our guest today, I want to give you a heads up that we're bound to hear some salty language today. And if that kind of discourse is going to offend you, I'm just going to recommend you go and listen or re-listen to another Clearing Obstacles episode instead. You've been warned. I tell you this because today we're joined by art director, designer, author, educator, and general rabble-rouser, James Victore. James exemplifies his work in that I find he's kind of impossible to define. So I'm going a little meta here, but as I sat down to write an introduction for this episode so that you, dear listener, could have an idea of what to expect, I struggled with the elusiveness of how to characterize or encapsulate what defines him, which incidentally is also how one could kind of assess the scope of the creative work that he's produced over his impressive and prolific career. James, I'm so grateful and humbled to have you as a guest on the Clearing Obstacles podcast, because honestly, you don't even know this, but you've helped me personally over the years through your approach to creativity to be messy. And you've come here today to potentially make a mess and fuck some shit up with me today. And I really respect and appreciate the opportunity to do so.
Hey, Coach Dan, I am happy to be here. And gee whiz, thank you for that. Thank you for that introduction. That was really sweet. And I'm sorry I'm so hard to pin down. It's difficult for me to stick with one thing, you know?
Yeah.
I like to play.
Well, that's the creative process, which we're going to be talking about in great volume today, I'm sure. Can you just start us off? Share a little bit about where you're at today, what you're doing, how you got here. Give us the 5-minute bio of James Victore.
I like to say I was born to do this job. And actually, the first line in my book, Feck, Perfuction, the first line says, "We were all born wildly creative, and some of us just forgot." So it's been my job and my purpose to never forget that I'm wildly creative. And I could take you through a whole entire history of growing up where I was, my wrist being slapped for being too bold or too loud or too this or too that. But I was able to hang on to my creativity through childhood, through middle school, where my creativity wasn't condoned in school, wasn't condoned at home. I was reared in the military. So, sing song and talking out loud and all these things were not really kind of,
Appreciated
or allowed. But what I've learned from my own kids is that innate drive of creativity that we all are born with and that we all need to hang on to. And as adults, we do not have, and that's a big damn shame. And it goes like this. Whenever I hear my kids, and I hear it constantly, I've got 2 of them and I hear it constantly. I hear them say, "Hey, Daddy, look at me. Look what I can do." And that's the drive for creativity. That's the drive to be seen and heard and appreciated. And for us professionally, we want to be seen and heard and paid. Paid to be who we are. So my journey from there to here has pretty much just held on to that. When I started professionally, I had to start professional. I dropped out of art school. Actually, I was asked to leave the School of Visual Arts in New York. And I started working literally 3 weeks later. because I had one professor that I adored and I respected, and he was a book jacket designer.
Uh-huh.
And I started doing book jackets, but the book jackets that I was doing looked like book jackets. I was becoming a designer.
Gotcha.
And for me, what I mean by designer is I think many designers, what they do is we make the obvious more obviouser.
Oh my God.
So my book jackets look like book jackets, right? I'd literally go into the bookstore and say, what does this look like? What's it supposed to look like? And then by the time I was 21, I was getting paid fairly well. I was wearing, silk suits, and I bought my first motorcycle cash. And then I realized, hey, wait a minute, I have my own sense of humor and my own sense of timing, my own sense of color and my own sense of proportion and and I started applying that to my work. And man, my clients, which were basically all of the biggest publishers in New York, they were not interested. And I realized that if I wanted to be creative in my own way, to be paid to be James Victore, I needed to stick to my guns.
Mm-hmm.
And I went and found the clients that would work with me.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't need to work for the fancy pants or the usual clients. It just took that extra amount of work to start to craft a reputation.
Right.
And now when I'm teaching people and when I'm coaching people, I say, hey, do this and try this and blah, blah, blah. And people look from the outside or from the bleachers and they go, hey, that's easy for you. You're James Victore. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I have worked fucking hard to be James Victore. I have had this stance.
You were the 30-year overnight success.
Yeah. I lived on kill fees for a long time so I could be James Victore.
So do you think, because the arc of what we're talking about here generally revolves around business, this season specifically about leadership overall, and yes, we can niche that down to business, but I think leadership en masse requires so many of the same things that creativity requires of us. Would you agree?
Yes, completely.
Yeah.
Completely. The first being a level of, self-knowledge and confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Creative confidence. Creative confidence is huge, because I think it's funny when Dan, I mentioned that I was asked to leave the School of Visual Arts.
Yep.
And then, I think it was 6 or 8 years after I was they asked me to come teach. And I taught there. I had a very popular class because I was the guy who I lit fires under their ass because I wanted to be the teacher that I needed at the time.
Wow. Yeah.
The reason I agreed to leave school is because I was bored.
Yeah.
Oh, and what I realized at teaching at the School of Visual Arts, I was like, hey, does it attract low self-esteem or does it create low self-esteem? There's so much doubt in what we do, especially when you're looking at it at that nascent, that young stage where they're just trying to figure things out. Because I had students who were 19, 20 years old,
right,
and they were kind of educated, as a designer because they'd seen magazines and they'd seen TV and they'd seen ads and they'd seen all this stuff. So they kind of were
experientially, at least.
They were like, is this what we're doing? Is this what it's supposed to look like? So to get them to the point where they could create work, where in the crit, their first words were, when I was a kid, I'd say, hey, Drew, tell me about this piece. And he'd say, well, when I was a kid, my dad used to take me to the beach every summer. And I'm like, I'm in. Keep going. But to have the confidence where you can believe, and this is right out of Ralph Waldo Emerson's Self-Reliance book, right? His essay. If you can believe that what is true for you is true for all men, that is genius. That is genius. And I think that's the level of creative leadership that I respect and the kind that I try to nurture in my people. The line that I try to nail into people's heads is, in the particular lies the universal.
I have that. I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah. The more honest, the more vulnerable you can share of the things you love and the things you fear, that's when you're really talking to people. But if you're saying, if as a creator you're saying flannel shirts are in and bacon's popular, let's put those together, then you're not coming from anywhere real or anywhere authentic.
Dying for you to elaborate on that a little bit. It's from a James Joyce quote, right? Originally, and he whatever inspired him to pen that, and you've lived with it for long enough that it's now sort of in your bones, that in the particular lies the universal. Will you say more of that for anybody listening who says that's actually the first time I've heard that?
Yeah. So the first time I read it was in Joyce, and it was an introduction to one of his books, actually to Dubliners. And then a number of years later, I read it by an author 800 years before Joyce, which is Rumi. And in Rumi, there's a small piece of one of his poems that he says, in the particular glows the universal. So he even took it to a further place, like it just glows there. And it's like I said, it's like the more honest I can be and the more vulnerable I can be, like when you start your story by saying, when I was a kid, right? Mm-hmm. Then people will lean in. Then it has meaning for them. And my students and even professionals are like, well, if it has meaning for me, how's it going to have meaning for other people? And I'm like, no, you have to trust that.
Right. Because in the particularized universe, we're having this common human experience. You show me somebody that isn't terrified of their own success as much as they are of their own failure. You show me somebody who's not afraid that harm will befall their kids. You show me somebody who's not afraid to lose everything, to not be loved, or to love and not be loved. Like, good, go for it. Show me somebody that doesn't have that human experience. But those are the things that I think in any capacity, we're so hesitant to show that vulnerability.
Yeah. Well, because we're scared shitless of ourselves.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, how do I get good at this? Like, well, the same way you get good at anything, just by practice.
Yeah.
Just practice. For me, when I'm writing or when I'm creating, it is second nature now. Mm-hmm. My life and my work is autobiographical because I have nowhere else to pull from.
Yeah.
I could just go the bacon flannel shirt route, but it wouldn't have any meaning to you.
Yeah. As I was thinking about our conversation today and just preparing for where we would go, that kind of what you did, you were like, well, I'm not going to go see what other people are doing for book jackets and then make those. I'm going to reimagine what book jackets should look like. And then I'll go find my tribe. And I'll just set this up outright as a false dichotomy that there are two approaches to business in particular. I'm going to create what the market wants, find out what the market wants and then create it, or I'm going to create what is real and meaningful and profound to me and then go find the people with whom that resonates. And I think a lot of people would argue that those are two different approaches to a business model. And I would say, again, it's a false dichotomy. Create what inspires you and have the confidence that there's an abundance of people with whom that will resonate.
Yes.
If it's real.
Yes. And the first business model, I've heard that my whole life and it scares the hell out of me because I'm like, am I doing that? I'm sorry. Am I doing that? I don't think I'm doing that. Right. Like, it's like, hey, if you want to make money, figure out what the world wants and make that. And I'm like, okay, but that is distraction.
Yeah.
That's distraction. And that's the reason we have real estate agents and baristas and salespeople and construction workers who are quite frankly so amazingly talented and gifted, and the world will never see their gift because they're like, well, a job became available, so I took a job.
It's Seth Godin's be wary of the race to the bottom because you might win.
Yeah.
You've expounded on that in the particular lies universal. You expounded on that quote. I don't remember where I saw it. Maybe it's your website or a social media post or something. That's kind of an extension of the know thyself, to understand the precept that, as you put it, the things that interest you and the things that make you happy are of interest to other people as well. So it's gospel. Victore said it. Dan Kent said it. I hope you wrote it down.
Written in stone.
So several years ago, you mentioned your book, Feck Perfuction. I bought that brilliant book and sadly loaned it to someone and today have no idea where it lives. So whoever you are, give it back. Actually, that means you're about to get another $20 from me. So with that, on the subject of perfectionism, you, I think, brilliantly said, perfection is a myth. It's a flaw disguised as control. I know in my work, I see an abundance of leaders who get stifled by their own pursuit of perfection. It's one of the leading causes of self-sabotage that I think entrepreneurs in particular are particularly vulnerable to. I'm curious what you think of this. I like to advocate that as leaders, it's more useful to seek order than control, because order can provide some level of predictability that we require in business to a large degree. We have to have some order to the chaos, or, the enterprise is probably not going to survive. What do you think of that? Pursuing order rather than control, or is that a fool's errand?
No, I think that one of the things that I try to impress upon when I'm coaching, especially the creative class, right? Mm-hmm. There's a word that I try to get them to understand that scares the hell out of anybody who's creative, and that word is discipline, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, you will have more success with simple scheduling and organization than you will with creativity, right? I mean, we are so not used to being disciplined and consistent.
Right. Especially as artists or creatives of any kind.
As quote unquote artists, or whatever that means.
Right.
Yes. And I think one of the things that is interesting for my side of the audience is that we are kind of also saddled with, another business phrase that the starving artist.
Right.
And for me, the starving artist is the artist who doesn't know they're in business. Uh-huh. That's the thing, right? We have to understand that we're in business and we have to follow some of the procedure that, the business follows.
Right. Because as you said, we all as humans want to be seen, heard, and appreciated. And if you're going to make a business of this gig and you're going to make money at it, also to be paid for that.
Yes. I said yes. That's what it says on my website. I help people get paid to do what they love.
I love that. So does creativity require a problem to be solved for it to be a creative act?
It depends on where you're, who you're making it for. Like if you are client based, mm-hmm. If you're client based, it can, mm-hmm. meaning there can be a brief mm-hmm. that you would follow, mm-hmm. or there can be a brief that you don't follow, or we just make shit up for a living. Mm-hmm. And then we add validity to it, which is a lot of what I do. A lot of what I do is I try to come up with the idea that nobody else can come up with. Mm-hmm. And then I present it in such a way that they're like, oh yeah, that makes complete sense. It's just a completely new way of seeing something.
Yeah.
So now I've forgotten your question.
So does creativity require a problem to be solved? And I'm inspired to ask that question between just kind of your approach to this and Rick Rubin's book, The Creative Act, which I think is an absolute essential reading, along with Feck Perfuction for leaders, business owners in particular, who might think this doesn't apply to them, but is absolutely critical to their thriving much less surviving.
And letting go of perfection, sure.
And letting go of perfection. So creativity, does it require a problem to be solved? And sometimes that problem might not even be a self-evident problem. It might just be the dissonance in you as the creator to say, Rick Rubin's examples, to create some timeless mashup between two pieces that absolutely did not belong together or were never imagined to belong together. And he juxtaposes them in such a way that there was a problem that he solved, in that there was space for that thing to be created. And after doing so, the world went, holy shit, Beastie Boys.
Yeah. I didn't know that there was that hole there that needed to be filled. Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So any problem that needs to be solved, I'll keep this in line again with the general focus of the Creating Obstacles podcast. Any product you create, any customer solution that you're that you need to systematize. Any employee who can't get in line with your vision, won't do things the way you need them to, that's a problem to be solved. And it requires your creativity. You've got to
Yes,
come up with a way that is different from what you're currently doing, because clearly what you're currently doing isn't working. That's why it's a problem.
correct.
A huge motivation for me in scoping out season 2, and we talked about this a little bit before we started recording, was there is, as I see it, I'm curious of your opinion on it, there's a huge problem within the world today when it comes to leadership. We need better leaders at every level, in business, in art, in, God help us, politics, in every corner. We need better leadership. What do you think is the greatest dysfunction within leadership? And this, again, can be in any context. So those teachers, you sort of address that. You said, I chose to be the teacher that I needed. So clearly there were ways they were doing it that were dysfunctional, or ways they weren't doing it that that were functional.
Well, I mean, I think, and I've had a number, or I do have a number of people who I'm working with who come from the educational background.
Mm-hmm.
And they came to me and they said, James, I came to you because I wanted to be a better teacher and a better designer.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, and I realize that I've become a better person.
Mm-hmm.
So what especially for leadership or anybody, that example of coming from education, what I urge them to do is to stop teaching from the book and teach from the heart.
What would an example of that be?
For anybody, your teaching should come from your love of the subject.
Okay.
Not from the, obviously, even if you're teaching advanced mathematics,
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who really, really loves what they do is going to make a much bigger difference and get people much more inspired and light fires under them,
right,
than somebody who's teaching from the book.
Right.
Because then what you're doing is you're urging their creativity.
Right. And passion for the subject.
Yeah. It should, move out of, you should move out of love.
Mm-hmm.
Best teachers. especially in, Christ, in creativity, mathematics, anything.
Yeah. Any subject that I ever had a teacher who was passionate about subject matter, which ironically were often math teachers. Shout out Ken Carmen, rest in peace. Was so passionate about the subject and found mathematics and geometry in everything, right? And lit me up. I saw the relevance of what we were doing, and he applied the relevance of it to what we were doing. So his passion was infectious.
Correct.
Okay, so if there's a deficit in leadership today, as James Victore sees it, one of those things would be passion for the subject matter.
Yeah, I was a terrible student. I hated school.
Did you?
And part of the reason why is because I didn't have anybody in leadership who took me through the degrees necessary so I could understand, or I didn't feel that they were enjoying it. Right. So now I've got two little kids, a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old. And when we're driving, it's just like, it's map games. Mm-hmm. Okay, guys, we're going to do threes, right? We're going to do the 3 game. Ready? Right. And that means we have to count from 0 to 100, and any multiplication of 3, we have to say beep. You can't say the number. So you're just counting 1 through 100, but you can't see any number that has a number that is divisible or a multiplication factor of 3. So I want them to fucking to love learning and to understand the play in it. And that is, I think, every level of leadership needs that.
Yeah.
Because that's how you inspire leaders.
Yeah. And I'll take it a step further, say, and not be afraid to get it wrong and forget to say beep.
Yeah.
Or say beep a couple too many times.
Howls of laughter, right?
Yeah.
And here, Dan, I'm game to say that, for certain questions, I have to say creativity is always the answer.
Mm-hmm.
I have so many people saying, "Hey, James, I quit my job. What do I do now?" Or, "Hey, I'm going to ask for a raise. What do I do now?" Or, "Hey, I've got the situation where blah, blah, blah. What do I do now?" And I'll say, "Hey, You are a creative individual. I suggest you do it creatively. Like, find your way in, find your way to this answer. Asking for money when I ask for every job that comes in the door, I ask for more. And I always find like fun ways to ask them, I'm like, how flexible is your budget? Is it weightlifter flexible or is it gymnast flexible? Like, what's the wiggle room here? Or even just say, hey, what can we do on this? Like, just the fact that you consistently ask for more money, ask for more creativity, ask for more time, right?
Right. Because what are they going to do?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, we're so afraid of
We're so afraid of that.
Hey, here's something, Dan. Yeah, I got a question for you. So a lot of what I deal with people, helping them, encouraging them, inspiring them to move forward and just to create the fucking life that they want.
Yeah.
A lot of it is dealing with fear.
Mm-hmm.
And the majority, the 99% of their fear, you know what it's based on?
Mm-hmm.
Other people. It's based on other people.
Mm-hmm. And their judgment, the comparisons?
Their judgment, what they're going to say, the pre-recorded voices that we have in our heads,
right.
which form our ego, right? Which is the teacher that told you wouldn't be good at math.
Right.
You're me as a kid getting smacked down any opportunity to throw in a pun or to goof around or draw on something. We're so afraid of other people's voices. It's so funny.
What direction does that fear go? That is to say,
it says stop. That fear is stop. That just says stop. Stop what you're doing. It won't work. I think we wake up, we're all capable of waking up, and we all do. I think we all wake up every morning. We have these beautiful ideas like, oh, shit, you know what? I could do that. I could do that for a living, or I could make that, or I could make this and I could sell that. And the next statements are not our voices. That's our voice. That is our creative, like innate voice.
Right.
Next things that we say are not ours. And that's like, how do I get it done? What's it going to cost? Who's going to buy it? Will they like it? That all of those what ifs, those are not us. Those are not us.
Are they useful though?
No. Move forward boldly. Get rid of the fucking fear. Be audacious.
Yeah.
No, they're not useful. Those voices say stop. Self-criticism, and when you've learned how to critique yourself, that is useful. That is very. I am a very good designer for the fact that I'm a very good critic of myself. I'm sometimes too brutal.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I put Feck Perfuction together, the book, is that I realized that a lot of the criticism I give myself doesn't really matter. So I've really learned to back off from that. Mm-hmm. And all the little details and all the little, I could redraw a word 17 times or 300 times and it wouldn't be perfect. But you know what? Who cares? Just me. Mm-hmm. Nobody cares. And that's the beautiful part.
There's a counterintuitive appeal to that not giving a shit. Is there any word of caution that goes with that?
Not giving a shit?
Yeah.
No, there isn't. Because you will get good at this process through practice. And you will learn what other people rise to.
Yeah.
That's the process. And again, we go back to in the particular, the more you hone that skill, you just being able to put it out the door, get it out the door, like Seth Godin's ship it, right? The more you do that, the more practiced, that's how you find your audience. Well, when someone looks at your work or someone contacts you and says, hey, you're weird. I'm weird too. I thought I was the only one. Again, it's that shared experience, but you'll only get there by taking those chances,
right?
By being bold and taking those risks,
right?
And most people don't want to take the risk.
I heard this analogy recently. It was on a Simon Sinek podcast with Brené Brown and Adam Grant. It was like this trifecta. They were referring to Jen Waldman and so this is, you're getting this third tier here. They were talking about what Jen Waldman has talked about, which is the creative pancake concept. This was new to me. I loved it. It's the creative pancake is the first pancake is always substandard, right? Off the griddle. It's got funky burn marks and it's kind of shit. But that third pancake, when you get to that third one, it's toasted perfectly golden brown. It's cooked all the way through. That's the one that we want to serve. But we're so afraid, back to that fear, we're so afraid of that first pancake, of the response that we're going to get, or the judgment we're going to cast upon ourselves from that first pancake, that nobody eats anything because you never fired up the griddle because of that first pancake. Fear.
Yeah. No, the fear says stop.
Fear says stop. And here's actually what I was getting at with that question is, what direction does that go? Is that fear internally? Fear to, say, your manager who you report to? Because in leadership, I can say it's fear of maybe not being liked by your team if you hold them accountable.
Of course, all of it.
It's omnidirectional.
All of it. Yeah. Other people.
Yeah.
We want to be liked. We want to fit in. We don't want to rock the boat.
Right.
And my theory is sink the boat. Sink the fucking boat. Sink the boat. If it's meant to go, it will go. It's like people are. I remember after a really great speaking event I had in Dallas, I had a Q&A at the end, and somebody said they raised their hand and they said, James, I got a question for you. He said, how do I motivate my team? I run this agency and I want good work from them. How do I motivate them? And I said, you don't. It's not your responsibility. It's not your responsibility. They should be fired up. They should be excited about what you're working on. What are you working on? Or maybe they know that they can't bring their A game. Maybe they know they're going to get shot down. Don't bring in Segways and pizza night. Don't motivate them.
Okay.
Inspire best work.
This is getting pedantic here, but there's a big difference between motivating and inspiring, I think, in my experience. Would you agree?
Sure, but I think they both come from leadership.
Okay, that's fair. I can motivate somebody with a carrot and a stick. I'm not going to inspire them. I'm not going to inspire them with a carrot or a stick.
True.
And that intrinsic motivation is only going to come if they're inspired. So I guess to take that full circle, a leader's job is to inspire in the work that we're doing or the cause that we are behind in our mission or whatever. And from that, our team will be motivated to do the work because it's intrinsically motivating to do so because they've been inspired by their leader.
Super.
Do you think leadership requires a title? Or like, could I be inspired or led by my colleagues even though they're lateral?
No, of course. Yeah, I think that is called teamwork, right? Yeah. I mean, the quarterback isn't the only one out there cheering everybody on and making sense. Yeah. Right. And I know places where, the workers grumble. They are begrudgingly, getting the work out the door. And that's a horrible way to work.
That's a horrible way to live. I agree.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Yeah.
And you're going to get, if you are, air quotes here, leading an organization like that, you're going to get what you deserve from that group of people.
Correct. Yeah, you're going to get a mutiny.
Yeah, or universal quiet quitting, and it won't even be mutiny. It'll just be a quiet everybody going to sleep, and you die on the vine.
Yeah. Why can't I keep good people?
You got one reason. There's one reason alone that you can't keep good people.
You.
Yeah. There's a lot of risk. I want to bridge this gap here because I again, like I said, I love your approach to creativity and leaning into the fear and doing it anyway. And the pragmatic reality that comes usually from the financial implications of that with business, where trying shit. A business can't always be a laboratory, right? Where we're just trying new shit all the time and always creating in that way.
Yes.
So I'm trying to cross that chasm so that it's usefully inspiring to leaders to not be afraid to create and to know when now they need, I consider myself a potter. It's been way too long since I've been back at my wheel, but I've always respected the traditional Japanese apprentice approach to pottery, where they take an apprentice for 2 to 5 years and they basically have them throw 500 of the same master's tea bowls, 500 a day. And you're going to do that for 2 or 3 years. You're going to put in so many reps that by the time your 3-year apprenticeship is up, now you've got mastery of the craft, and your artistry and your creativity you can competently execute on your own vision because you've mastered the tools.
Yes.
Yeah. So within business, the creativity comes more this is just going to sound so stupidly obvious, at the creative phase of a product? Or do you think that can be infused in everyday situations? This is the problem to be solved. It's a tie back to that problem to be solved question. So like I said, if I have a problem, my employees keep showing up late. What do you need to do to be creative as a leader to inspire them to show up on time?
I think you don't take it on your own shoulders. I think if you have people, they should shoulder that responsibility. Like, give it back to them. It's, again, if they don't feel part of the process, that's part of the problem. You know what I mean? If they don't feel that they can show up every day and be the person they want to be, then they're not going to bring their game. Right. So there's a certain sense of, hey, look at me, look what I can do, has to happen. And we need to allow that and not control.
Yeah. So if they're inspired enough, they're going to show up on time. Now that inspiration, do you agree?
I would trust that. And if that doesn't work, then, obviously, what is the old saying? Firings will continue until the morale
improves. Right. Right. But if they're inspired, and that inspiration, the thing is, that can come from anywhere, as I see it. That can come from the company's vision. That can be inspired by the customer engagements you're going to have that day. It can be inspired by the fact that you believe so wholeheartely in your team that you don't want to leave them hanging. So you're going to make sure you're showing up on time and you're pulling your weight. You're doing your part.
Yeah. And I don't know, I don't know how many businesses are run that way. I don't know. Like you see constantly, it's like some corporation has been voted, best place to work.
Sure.
Right. I'm curious what the the measurements of that are, what that is.
Yeah. I'm going to bastardize the statistics, but it almost always has to do with autonomy. So there has to be enough autonomy.
That's what we're talking.
Self-authority. You're given plenty of self-authority, self-management.
Exactly.
There's a vision that you believe in, and your team does as well. There is accountability for those who don't show up in a way that supports all of that. And you're compensated to a measure that feels in integrity with your work.
Perfect. Okay.
So those are the kind of the pillars of that employee satisfaction. Every bit of that comes from a leader who had a creative solution on each one of those issues.
Correct. Yeah.
Do you think
so? It's not just the leader's responsibility. It's everybody's responsibility. But they need to feel involved. They need to feel that they can bring their own sense of creativity to the table, and that they are heard.
Yes, and they will only feel that if whoever's at the front of the boat saying, "This is the direction we're going. Now paddle, everybody go."
Yeah.
If they're modeling that, if they're encouraging that, if they're supporting that, and certainly not punitive with any of that.
Yeah, correct. And they need to also know that, they don't get a gold star every day.
Right.
You know,
Right.
like
Right.
sometimes we win. There's some pragmatics of like sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. And the thing about risk in business,
Mm-hmm.
business is all about risk
Mm-hmm.
and controlling it,
Mm-hmm.
and creativity is not. So when you really start putting, mixing creativity and business together, it can get very tricky. But in dealing with people, again, the leader needs to feel that he's seen, heard, and loved, or she,
Mm-hmm.
and the employees need to feel the same.
Agreed. It has to go both directions.
Correct.
A leader's self-awareness plays what role in that?
I would think that it would be that they are not the leader. The whole gang is the leader. They are the totem. They are in the front. They make the decisions, but there's a level of humility that goes in there.
Agreed.
There's a level of lack of ego.
Mm-hmm.
We're all in this together. Right?
Huh? Okay. I like where you're going with that. There's a structural hierarchy, but that can't have anything to do with the egos in the room. It's for the
Yeah,
sake of this.
you
It's
can
for the sake of the
you can
organization.
you can lead. You can lead. You can be a leader and have people follow you because they're afraid of you, or and I learned this by being raised in the military, or people will follow you because they love and respect you.
Right.
Or the longer lasting
Right.
version,
More
the
enduring, more
more
authentic.
enduring, the more
Yeah.
authentic, the more profitable. Because
Anybody.
because
Yeah.
the other one, the other one. There's going to be a level of jealousy and backstabbing. There's a fog in the room all the time.
Right. Anybody will take a job for the paycheck. They won't stay at the job for the paycheck.
Right.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
or perform their role in that function with that buy-in, with that inspired engagement, if they don't feel that they're being seen and heard and have an impact.
Correct. I work with people who have the golden handcuffs. They have jobs that they're just like, they like, oh my God, I bought a house, I got this, and now I can't leave. Like, what do I do now?
How do you help
Right?
them? Burn the boat?
Yeah. No, I say, listen, we all want success, but what we really want is happy. So we want to figure out how to be happy in that place,
Mhm.
in that position. And for me, happiness, the definition of happiness is to 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 feel progress towards a desired goal, right? If you wake up every day and you're like, fuck, I got to go to work, right? That's not cool. But if you feel that I am making progress towards something that I want,
Right.
desirable, that brings happiness.
Back to the intrinsic motivation.
That may be a side gig. It may be your own way to make the situation work. It may be a way to rally the people that you're working with or the people in your group.
Yeah.
It may be different things, but that you feel that you're at least working towards a goal and not stuck.
Right. And a goal that matters to you.
Correct. Correct.
Intrinsically motivated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple episodes before this one, we spoke with the author of the book. It's called The New Happy by Stephanie Harrison. And I won't shortchange her by trying to condense the entire thing into this, but the strongest takeaway from that is when we can divorce ourselves of the notion that we are not enough.
Mm-hmm.
You're enough no matter what. No matter what that first pancake looks like, James, you're still enough. No matter what you sold that third pancake for, you're still enough. And to be able to extract yourself from that fear, not even extract yourself from that fear, but to confront it and do it anyway, gives you the validation that you're otherwise going to hinge upon what your paycheck looks like.
Yes.
Or, what the critics said.
Yes. Yes. And what you're talking about is, our own self-worth, right?
Yeah.
Our value.
Right.
And when if you can wrap your head around the idea that, especially when it comes to money, that money is, like Joseph Campbell called it, congealed energy, right? So what happens is that especially in the creative world is people get weird when they start selling their work or getting paid for their creativity.
Right.
And to get them to change that mindset, to know that they've put their creative energy into this work, and their work helps people and makes people's lives better and makes people's lives beautiful. And they're trading that energy
Yeah.
with someone else who's using their available energy in the form of money.
Right.
Right. So if we can understand that, if we can take the emotion out of it first and understand that, your work has value, your work is worthy. You are valuable because of the energy that you bring to the table.
Mm.
And the other people are trading, the energy they gained from their job or whatever for yours.
And I want to go back to what you're talking about of trusting yourself enough that if what you're producing, how you're showing up, whether you're a widget maker or you're designing book jackets, if what you're bringing to the table is authentic enough and representative enough of you and what inspires you, there's a tribe out there. And
Yeah.
and sure, there's also a tribe of people who are going to judge you and whatever.
Mhm.
And being okay with that enough to know that you're still worthy regardless of their opinions, and just make sure you're finding your tribe.
Yes. And what I try to get people to understand is no matter who you are and what level you're starting at,
Mhm.
you have an audience. You have an audience, and it's probably a huge audience. It's just that they don't know you yet,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't know them. So the only way to get in touch with them is to show your work again and again and again.
Oh my God.
And just fucking start. Just start and show your work consistently. And if you feel that your work is not good, keep making it. Just keep going because it's
Make
going to
300 more T-balls today.
exactly, because it's going to get better. I have followed people and urged them on for years, people who I don't know. And I'll be perusing, social media, and I'll look at their stuff and I'm like, oh fuck. They like make me look lazy now.
See what
Just
I've
because
done?
they've been able to just press on regardless.
Yeah.
And understand that, the other thing is to like, nobody really cares. Like they're so afraid of other people's opinions and other people's voices, but those people don't care. They're too busy worried about their own lives and worried
Right.
about their own.
Right.
They don't really care. They just want to be seen and heard and loved. So they pipe up on your channel and say, "Wow, that's kind of
Right. They're seeking the attention. You just had a post, I think it was on LinkedIn last week about that. I think I commented, don't worry about what other people are thinking about you. They're not.
Yeah, exactly. Who cares? And and there's freedom in that. But yes, I mean, I think one of the things that you were saying earlier was like this: how do we let go? How do we let go of that? The worthy thing. It's difficult. It's difficult. It takes practice, and if you apply practice to it, you will get better at it.
All right. So I'm going to get personal here. This can make it into the episode or not. In an interview feature from the documentary project Like Knows Like, it was 9 years ago, you very vulnerably said, and I'm going to quote you said self-referentially, you said, I think there's a really nice, funny, charming guy who doesn't have the fears that I have, and I want him to be, and I'll get there. Are you there?
I'm getting there. I was in a situation recently where I was taking my own medicine in some
Always tastes like shit.
it's funny, yeah. But no, what visually came out of it in my mind was a photograph, one particular photograph of me when I was a kid. And when I was a kid, I was fun and I was smiling all the time and I had joy and play and love. And I I fucking still do. I still do. We all do. But it's just buried a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of dusting off here and a little bit of digging there. But I really do believe that.
Yeah.
I really do believe that. And if I didn't, I couldn't go on.
Hmm.
If I didn't, it would be, life would be impossible.
Mm-hmm. What do you
And
do?
creativity would be nil, right?
Yeah. What do you do to put in the reps to evolve to that guy that you described?
My therapy is the gym.
Mm.
That helps me completely because what happens is we get awash with all these thoughts and these thoughts bleed, all these shitty chemicals into our body. And the only way to get rid of them is to replace them with,
Stuff,
you
dopamine
know,
and
stuff.
endorphins,
Yeah.
and yeah.
Yeah. And the good thoughts. Like I try to go every day. I was there earlier and I get up very early in the morning. And that makes me very happy. I go sit out. I have a little spot and I sit outside before the birds and
Mhm.
before the sun. And the first thing I do is I have a little gratitude session.
Great.
And I just try to be thankful. I try to think about that little kid and I just try to be thankful for the very, very, very simple things that I have in my life. You
Mhm.
know, I wake up and I feel fucking great. I feel great,
Mhm.
I know 30, 40-year-olds who wake up and they're like, oh, I've got this and and I got to take my pills. And I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing wrong? Come on. Just little things. So I think the gratitude thing helps me tremendously. And even just passing during the day, I've got two little, like I said, I've got, smallish kids and they help me
I'll
because
bet.
I see that in them.
Yeah.
I'm like, don't squash it. Don't squash it. Don't squash it.
Right. Right.
Mm,
And
Um,
more than that, let it be fertilizer for yours.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I've got there's this little sketchbook on the table next to me. It's been here the last couple of days, and it's my daughter has this tiny, tiny, tiny little sketchbook, and she's filling out every page, and I'm like, oh my God, you are
Yeah.
so good, so prolific, first of all, but man, her drawings are getting so amazing. And I'm like, oh, I want that. I want that. I feel like I'm like sitting on a table next to her, scribbling, and then we have a big dining room table that I made and it's got like, always got paper on it and colored markers and pens. And we try to, play a lot.
That's
So
awesome.
constant play. My work is play.
So this is a great, if we were to build a pantry of ingredients for all of that, to become that version that you described, that why I quoted that back to you is because I think in my experience, whether we know it or not, we're all in pursuit of that best
Yes.
version of ourselves, right? And if we were to build a pantry of how to get to that place, we've got doing hard things. That's your working out. We've got gratitude. We've got
Mhm.
play. What did I miss?
Love. I used to say that I used to talk about this all the time. It's like play, fun, joy, and love. When we're kids, that's our life. We
Right.
want it. We can, all we want is to be loved and to give love freely. We want to play. We want to feel, we want to feel joy,
Mhm.
right? Life should be fun. And as adults, all of that super hard.
You don't have much room for that fear and self doubt if that's what's covered the plate.
Correct. Yeah. Those are the fun, play, joy, and love are the things that we need to constantly replenish in our thoughts,
Yeah.
in our lives.
Yeah.
And that's the road to a creative life.
I love that. And embodiment of that, I think, can serve in and of itself as inspiration that is required of really effective leaders.
Yeah. Do the work.
Do the work. Man, I really appreciate your time and the wisdom that you have, hard-earned wisdom that you've been able to share with us in the conversation today. I'm curious, what do you have cooking these days? And so you say you're writing another book. What else you got?
Yeah, I have got to poop out this the follow-up to Feck Perfuction. It's been too long. I've been too distracted with the daily grind of, of work.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I love what I do and I take it seriously and I want to help other people love what they do. So I got to get it out the door. And the other things that I'm doing is just like sharing trying to share and trying to inspire all over the place through my writing, through Instagram channel, and through my my coaching process.
Yeah.
And in my weekly podcast called The Right Questions.
If somebody wanted to get more of any or all of that, James, where do we go?
You go to the Instagram page or go to the website. The website is called yourworkisagift.com.
Yourworkisagift.com.
Which is interesting because it used to be just James Victore, jamesvictore.com, jamesvictore.com. And I realized I got to a point in my career where my work was no longer about me and it was about other people. So we changed it to yourworkisagift.com.
Brilliant. I love it. And speaks volumes of you. And again, your generosity of your time today with me and this creative process and hashing out some shit that I didn't come with answers to necessarily, especially the way from the James Victore approach and the way you see it. So I appreciate you.
Dan, thank you for the very thoughtful conversation. I appreciate it. And I appreciate being challenged on the way. Thanks.
Good. Likewise, I appreciate you. We at Best Self Coaching hope you got all that you came here for from today's episode. And if you want more like this, be sure to follow and subscribe to Clearing Obstacles on your favorite listening platform. You can also go to bestself.coach/podcast for more information. There you'll find more episodes and links to the content discussed today, as well as info on how you can get in touch if you're interested in clearing your own obstacles to become the kind of leader that you know your team is waiting for. Your business should serve your life, so let us help you get there from here because nobody should do this on their own. Thanks again for listening. See you soon.